Hello, I am 13, and we are continuing a string of decks that don't really exist, but I'm actually really excited about the one tonight. So, typically, you have a couple of checkboxes to hit when you're brewing in order to make a deck competitive, and one of them is a competitive shell, and that's typically the one that I try to slap onto any of my horrible ideas. But then you typically want like efficient threats, you want a powerful theme, and you also need to have synergy between all of the pieces. And that really doesn't happen a whole lot. That's where we get all of our competitive decks from. Like, basically, you have to check every single one of those in order for a deck to actually have legs. And aside from a couple of really random looking one ofs in our list, we're actually doing something that's on that power level tonight. So I'm pretty excited about it. The two cards in the sideboard that aren't showing are Wear Tear. One of these days I'm going to fix flip cards. It's not today, but Wear Tear is a very powerful card in our colors, so we're going to be running that. But tonight is going to be all about the +1/+1, and -1/-1 counters. So our strategy is Blasting Station. This is only a one of, also competes with slots for Altar of the Brood, but basically just a sacrifice effect that we can repeatedly use on one of our creatures with Persist. So Blasting Station is the one of here, basically sack a creature, shoot an opponent for one, and then when a creature enters play, you may untap Blasting Station. So this has just some pretty decent value to it, but we're actually going to hopefully be comboing that with Rhythm of the Wild. So this is a standard powerhouse card, or at least it was. I don't play standard. I think it's mostly just the Scape Shift deck running around these days, but don't quote me on that. Either way, creature spells you control can't be countered, good versus control, and non-token creatures you control have Riot. They enter the battlefield with your choice of a 1/1 counter or haste. So we can give a lot of our creatures haste and actually just have valuable threats. We can grow them, they can be pretty decent, but most importantly, +1/+1 and -1/-1 counters actually cancel each other out on a card. It's one of those weird rules interactions that you just need to be familiar with. So if we have a card like Kitchen Finks that enters the battlefield, it is a 3/2. We can give it haste and swing for 2, or we can put a 1/1 counter on it, whatever. There's decent value there. But more importantly, Persist. When this creature dies, if it had no -1/-1 counters on it, return it to the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter on it. Well, it enters with a -1/-1 counter, but then we have Riot. So we just put a 1/1 counter on it, and that Kitchen Finks is infinite. At which point we use Blasting Station or Altar of Dementia to mill our opponent out of the game. Well, we actually have our synergy on top of that on a powerful shell. Yay! Well, that's Vizier of Remedies. Vizier of Remedies will just make sure we don't get that -1/-1 counter as long as this is in the battlefield. Then we're going to be combining that with Devoted Druid for infinite mana. So Devoted Druid and Vizier, I'm sure you've seen it before, infinite green mana. And honestly, with the interaction with Rhythm of the Wild, Devoted Druid can actually tap for 3 mana in a single turn and still stick around, or it can just have haste and tap for 2 mana and just be mana neutral. But not really sure how often that's going to come up. Essentially, though, infinite mana as well as some synergy with the rest of the deck. Then we blow all that infinite mana on Walking Ballista to shoot our opponent out of the game. We do have 4 copies of Walking Ballista, and that is because we're also using Goblin Engineer. So again, synergies on synergies on synergies. Goblin Engineer, when it enters, we can go search for an artifact. We're going to go get that Blasting Station or Altar of Dementia, and then with Rhythm of the Wild, we can give him haste. So we've already had 3 mana for Rhythm of the Wild. We can give him haste and sack the artifact immediately, get it into play and combo off. Then we're also running Arkham's Astrolabe so that we can actually just get an artifact in play. If we have 2 Astrolabes and a Goblin Engineer, we can just loot them to draw infinite cards. And then we're actually just topping Bloodbraid Elf on the top end. With Riot, it's a 4/3, and yeah, that's the deck. Just a lot of very powerful cards. Murderous Redcap is also a win condition when paired with any of the sack outlets. It can just shoot anything, and just so excited about this one. Well, we have our first match. Yeah, this is fine. This is, unfortunately, Goblin Engineer and Walking Ballista don't work the way you want it to unless you have Rhythm out. So this is still infinite mana on 2. So we can hang on to this, as well as a Lightning Bolt to interact with opponent. And appears to be Tron. So might be slightly awkward there. Well, another Astrolabe means that we can actually start infinite. Well, not infinite. Every turn we can loop. The Astrolabe will let us filter, so it honestly doesn't matter what we grab here. Let's go ahead and grab a Mountain, just so opponent's not nearly as onto what we're doing, and we can still hold up Bolt. We'll get our own Astrolabe. And cantrip into another Bolt. Okay, well, opponent's likely going to turn 3 Tron us. Blast Zone. We can live with Blast Zone. This means Expedition Map is getting Tron Land Piece 2, so we have one moment to breathe. Well, that's sad now that we have 2 bolts, but this means this is Eldrazi Tron. So, 1-drops aren't nearly as good, but we can still infinite kill out of nowhere. Another Goblin Engineer. Alright, well, I think this puts me on Devoted Druid then. Just that I can untap and have infinite mana. Opponent's gonna have to dismember this if they've got it. Then, boy. I can't filter off the Devoted Druid mana. Matter Reshaper's fine. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of notifications. Let me just make sure that Slack's muted. There's the Dismember. Alright, well, opponent is definitely on their Interruption, but it doesn't look like they have anything amazingly well for actually killing me. Like, they have a 3-2, but what are you going to do about that? So we'll get Goblin Engineer out and can utterly confuse opponent at this point. Like, they don't even know we're white yet. We do have the Rhythm, but we don't have infinite mana anymore. I can Needle the Blast Zone. Or, sorry, yeah, the Blast Zone. I'm kind of okay with Blasting Station. I mean, we're going to cheese it into play anyway, so let's just go with Blasting Station. And we'll see what opponent's up to. Opponent's pausing to figure out what the F is going on. Alright, opponent has officially reached 4 mana, and they have their Expedition map out, which means that they can have Tron next turn, and we'll have a Blasting Station. If we hit a land drop, we can Rhythm, and just see how poorly off we are. If not, we can weld into play the Blasting Station. It kind of gets around to All's Dust and Ugin, but that's about it. Okay, another Matter Reshaper. That's technically a thing. And we have a land here, so I can Vizier and have a successful blocker and weld into play Blasting Station. Or I can Rhythm and hopefully just top deck a... I'm still going to need mana to play any of my Persist threats. Vizier doesn't actually accomplish a whole lot on its own. I know opponent's going to have Tron. So I want to at least leave the Goblin Engineer up until end step. Rhythm getting Karned is kind of bad, but tapping out and having them eat it is probably worse. Let's just run out the Vizier. I think that's the best we can hope for here. Yeah, that Chalice is doing nasty things to me. We're going to need red more than anything else in our current hand, so we can go with a Sacred Foundry. Oh, I almost messed that up. I can technically filter, but I do want to leave red available. If our opponent cards us, I can get back to Devoted Druid. That is amazing. I wouldn't be able to activate, though, because Slatus would have to be out at that point. I also really wouldn't put it past opponent, given the fact they only have Tron in their hand, that they actually blow the Blast Zone on 2 next turn. Like, just take this turn to charge up and then Blast Zone on 2. I actually really don't want them to draw a threat, so I'm just going to fog one of the combat damages here. Actually, that would require putting out my 3-drop in case they're on card. I'm just going to have to let that happen. And they found an additional power plant, so a lot of mana coming. And they play the Ghost Quarter, so... I mean, they can charge that this turn and not expose Tron, if that's what they're afraid of. I really don't know what to make of what's going on, but let's go ahead and get our Blasting Zone out. Alright, a land is okay. So I can Rhythm here. I think I have to. I can Goblin Engineer and leave up an activation, but that doesn't actually help me a lot. If I Goblin Engineer, I can't actually kill this Matter Reshaper right off the bat, but Rhythm will set me up to just top deck a Finks and win. And then I'm actually kind of okay to just get this killed. Actually, no. If opponent Ulamogs, they can exile my Blasting Station. And I don't want that to happen. So they do technically have 10 mana next turn. Although now they're going to charge the Blast Zone up, so if they go to blow this, then I can just sack it and get the Astrolabe back and draw a card. Also kills their Matter Reshaper. One counter. Okay. There's Tron. Mind Stone is not a payoff, so that's a pretty decent start. And I'm taking 3. I'm not really afraid of anything that opponent's doing. Seeing as how I'm on a combo kill, I haven't been activating Blasting Station, but I guess technically there's a world where Bloodbraid Elf can close out this game. Yeah, I'm not welding anything, so it's all you, opponent. Windswept Heath. I guess technically, knowing I had the Riot trigger on this Goblin Engineer, I should have actually tried to weld this at instep. Oh well, we'll just go tutor a... Yeah, I don't really have to worry about untapping it. All of these can be cheesed into play, but they get countered by Chalice on the way down. I think the only thing I don't want in my deck at the moment is the Altar of Dementia. And this time I will put it in the yard. Fully aware it was going to get countered, but... sometimes you just gotta get your cards in the yard. Opponent hits their Eldrazi Temple to get a waste. So thinning the deck, just looking for a threat. Found yet another waste. And that is a Karn the Great Creator. They can pay for a Mycosynth Lattice. So if they lattice, they can technically lock me out of the game here. Sad panda. Looking back, I knew that this would be in their deck. I probably could have gotten a Pithing Needle with this Goblin Engineer. But this lattice means that I'm going to not be able to activate anything. Then, yeah, opponent just gets to attack. That's all there really is to it. Yep, can't cast anything. That was horrible. Alright, so let's do some fun things here. Damping Sphere comes in. Night of Autumn Wear Tear comes in. Probably not bringing in any more artifacts. The artifact package is actually kind of bad here, so we're going to try to actually get Hasty Winds with Bloodbraid and Rhythm, or just a quick Devoted Druid combo. Honestly, if opponent didn't have their Dismember, we would have easily taken that. And they only run a couple of Dismembers. It's not like they always have them. They just happen to have it when we had our Devoted Druid out. So we put up a fight. Opponent didn't even have much of a clock, but we put up a fight. Being on Eldrazi Tron, the bolts aren't nearly as good, although they can kill a minus Karn. Lightning Helix is just going to be the more expensive version of that. I can see just trimming a couple of these guys and trying to make this work. Evolutionary Leap is a way that I can slow roll sacrificing, so I'd consider bringing these in for maybe just some of our more awkward artifacts, like Altar's cheap. Also, it could be an easier win condition, assuming that we're both under a card lock. It's not very common that happens, but it is a consideration. Maybe just a non-zero number of Walking Ballistas. We'll still have them as tutor targets and to draw and actually pay off a Devoted Druid, but Devoted Druid with Evolutionary Leap can still win, even if artifacts get shut down by Karn, but not like the full lock. Maybe just trim Rhythm of the Wild just a little slow. We can run like this. So scientific. Plan is just early lockout. Single land's not going to cut it. We get a couple of redraws here, and we get to go tutor any of the artifacts straight out of our deck. We get to blow up a Chalice, and I'm on board. For Tux, probably the Murderous Redcap. Don't need it yet, and we have no mana. Just going to go start off with a Plains. I cannot get a dual land. Of course, that's the Wooded Foothill. I guess that means Mountain. I can't get a dual land, otherwise I can't actually run out these Astrolabs, Labs, whatever they are. And that's not a land. Pathing our own creatures looking like a near inevitability. Oh, that's a Vizier. Show me mana. That's not mana. Alright, well, if opponent slams a Chalice here, we can still technically blow it up if we top deck. I actually don't care much about these 1-drops, but this looks like it's going to be a Matter Shaper, probably into a Thought Knot, and that's a little hard to come back from. Yep, that's a Chalice on one. Prismatic Vista, so still technically in this. I actually like casting Vizier after Devoted Druid anytime I actually resolve the spell. I do want white in case they slam a Karn in the near future, so let's do that. Goblin Engineer. I kind of want to go take Pithing Needle. I don't need a win condition yet. Actually, yes I do, because I have 2 winning creatures on the table, so I guess we go for a sack outlet. They Damping Sphere can technically shut them down here. If they have a Thought Knot, they can take my win condition, and I need to shut off their mana. Alright, Damping Sphere it is. We'd be in a really, really good spot if we would have actually hit our land drops. it looks like Thought Not. Spatial Contortion. That's fine. Ooh, and look at that. Prismatic Vista, like a boss. So, still need a sack outlet. Otherwise, Kitchen Finks comes out. We gain some life that really doesn't matter versus Tron. Goblin Engineer dying does mean we're not top decking that Damping Sphere, though. Yep, that's a Matter Reshaper, perfectly acceptable. And a Temple Garden. So I get a double spell here. I'm still leaving up Where. So if Vizier comes out, I have an infinite Kitchen Finks now. And then I'm top decking into... Alright, so opponent's looking for lands. They found a cavern. So Reality Smasher was already on the table. They might have an All Is Dust, but thanks to Vizier, we just get a 3/2 Kitchen Finks, gain 2 life. And then I have a very nice Where pointed at that Chalice, assuming that we can break it down. Then we're attacking for 5 each turn. Alright, this looks like an All Is Dust. Just lovely. We get a little itty bitty Kitchen Finks. What are my 1-drops that I care about? It's basically just Pithy Needle. I can cast that if I top deck it, so I'll hang on to the Wear Tear for a bit. Wooded Foothills. We have a 10-turn clock. They don't necessarily have Tron assembled yet, but they do have a lot of mana. So I am missing 2 pieces of either combo at the cost of some interaction. Maybe should have just been more lightning bolts coming out. This looks like an Ulamog. Walking Ballista for 5. Alright, well, I'm not going to let them keep pumping that every turn, so now is the opportunity for Tear to make a heroic appearance, followed by a Path to Exile. Opponent gets to shoot me and kill my Walking Ballista. Really just looking for a... They're likely going to shoot me for 3 and then take the Path effect. Really just looking for a Bloodbraid Elf. Put up a clock, potentially get me a good card. So grab a dual land. I wanted to keep the Lightning Bolt for card. I could have actually Lightning Bolt with the trigger on the stack for... I mean, that technically makes some of my future draws better, but they have a Blast Zone out, so can't imagine that's going to stick around for a while. I wanted this in case they card minus, I can just kill it on the spot. Alright, opponent, you have all of the mana. That's a Thought Knot Seer, so gotta pop the Lightning Bolt Meow. Path is a redraw, Bloodbraid is a redraw with 4 damage stapled to it. That's a blasting station. Alright, well, with Blast Zone out and the Rhythm of the Wild, I'm just going to hang on to this. Opponent has us on a 5-turn clock, but we didn't kill them nearly fast enough. The Spatial Contortion hitting our Goblin Engineer so that they actually got their mana online was actually a big deal. They wouldn't have been able to cast the All Is Dust for at least 2 more turns. And we would actually have a board state of synergistic creatures and probably actually would have just killed them. Especially if we still had the Goblin Engineer. And that is a Karn the Great Creator with enough mana to lock me out of the game. Nice slow roll, opponent. Yeah, Karn proves himself to be not very fun, but we already knew that. Karn and Teferi are definitely on my short list of cards that I don't want to see in Modern anymore. Teferi's actually made me just stop playing Blue-White Control because it's so unfun when you can just slam a 8-piece of that extent. This is fine. We get to bolt a couple of things, and then we have a couple of combo pieces for either way. And this looks like it's either Wurza or Storm. Snow-covered island typically means Wurza these days, just that you have the 4-color fetch land. And I'm actually likely going to just represent Bolt here and go grab a tap land. We don't have much snow, other than the fact that Prismatic Vista gets us 3 basic colors. 2 mana, both snow-covered islands. This is looking more like Urza, so I'm going to try to get my game face on to actually wrap this up pretty quickly. I need to get red and green here, but my Stomping Grounds is in hand, so we'll just go Sacred Foundry. Just so I can multi-bolt. Kitchen Finks. Alright, well, Prismatic Vista means I'm taking the least amount of damage here, so we'll do that. Go grab our Forest and Devoted Druid. Wurza doesn't have a lot of artifacts, or a lot of hate to start off. Alright, well, that's a sigh. So, likely double bolting. Oh, we found a path. We're good at this game. I swear I've played this before. Just pathing now, not going to give them the opportunity to actually do anything. And then I can Walking Ballista for 1. I don't think that accomplishes a whole lot. Do I want to keep up the bolt? Opponent's going to show me an Urza next turn, and then I can kill the token on cost. Actually, let's just go for Kitchen Finks. It's quite possibly the most confusing play that I can make. It also puts a clock out there. If we do happen to whiff on another combo piece like a Vizier, then this is our best way to win. I'm expecting Urza out of opponent. Oh, is this the same guy that was running the Paradoxical deck? That was very painful to sit through. Alright, looks like the Paradoxical deck. Looks a lot like the Paradoxical deck. Pithy Needle can name Saheeli, but Saheeli's damage is in what she does, not what she has. So let's go ahead and send... I actually just need to kill this. Opponent is leaving up Mox Opal, which might be representing a Spell Pierce. So I can Blasting Station, attack in. Opponent double blocks with servos. That doesn't actually accomplish a whole lot for me. The damage is already done with the fact that I have a -1/-1 counter on Kitchen Finks. I can Walking Ballista for 4, shoot down. Yeah, let's actually do that. No, because that cashes out my Walking Ballista, and that's my win condition if I find a Devoted. Or a Vizier. Oh, I can win with blasting with Vizier. So yeah, let's just cash out and clear the way. Walking Ballista for 4. Shoo choo. Shoo choo. If I get infinite mana, I can win with the blasting station at the moment, so attack Saheeli. Bolt Saheeli, and then opponent should have 3 cards in hand. And I'm top decking multiple ways to win this game. This looks like an Urza. But not yet. Darksteel Citadel. Alright, well, this is the new, incredibly painful to watch Paradoxical deck. Because you have to sit here and wait for them to figure out if they can kill you. Opponent gets to replay the Ichor Wellspring and the Mox Opal, but they don't really have anything that generates value yet, so we might only see the Ichor Wellspring. Yep, you get a draw card, and it's my go. Astrolabe is a start. It's a redraw. That's another Walking Ballista. Not quite what I was looking for, but it is technically acceptable. This doesn't stop mana abilities, but it does stop respinning with a lot of mana from Urza, so I likely just need to run it out. I could also name Sai to turn off the card draw option here, because that's how they're going to see more cards. Like, this isn't actually a cost as long as you have the mana ability from Urza. So I can run Blasting Station, not really accomplish much. Pithing Needle, Sai / Urza. Pithing Needle's also going to leave up Bolt. Alright, we're going to name Sai. Actually, Urza's probably a 4 of in the deck. Yeah, Sai is better, though. Sai is so much better for them. Again, doesn't stop their casting ability, but Walking Ballista and Lightning Bolt could technically cash out to kill either one of them at 4 toughness. Well, picked the wrong card. Hopefully they can't combo kill me here, though. So 4 cards in hand, 4 artifacts. They have 5 mana. Just spin Urza and whiff. Alright, Ichor Wellspring. A little bit more card draw. Everflowing Chalice. Free mana. Opponent, can you do it? You can technically cast Paradoxical Outcome and get... You're netting mana when you cast it. Or are you just spinning Urza and whiffing? You have Paradoxical to draw 4, so we might be dead here. Lightning Bolt doesn't even interact with any of the servos or thopters that Saheeli Sai make on a meaningful level because they'll still just float them for mana. Going to post board, we get EE, Knight of Autumn. A couple of cards that actually help. But I was looking for a faster kill here. Technically mana neutral, also draws a card, but if they're not leading off on cheap things, then might not have the mana actually pull it off. Alright, main 2 for some reason. They do have enough to Paradoxical again. And that's a redraw. So looking at 3 mana, 4 mana. Another Ichor Wellspring, but that did cost them a mana. Okay, they're back up to 4, 5. That's 6. That also bounces my Devoted Druid, so I'm not going to have infinite mana now, and that might be enough to concede. Yeah, they can pay the mana to do it. They don't have to tap it, so that's a free bounce, assuming they don't forget about it. This looks like a Paradoxical. All right, and that basically draws their deck. I'm done. Opponent, I've played against other opponents, and they don't really have a win condition. Not a huge fan of this deck, but what can you do? Wear Tear comes in. Damping Sphere definitely comes in. Veil of Summer can be a cantrip. It can also protect my stuff against any of their Echoing Truce, but I don't necessarily think that's good enough. Spellskite could also be a consideration, but seeing as how we're just bringing in artifact removal, we're going to just trim on some of our less than ideal cards here. Lightning Bolt doesn't kill any of their threats. We don't exactly have an answer for Saheeli, but likely just going to be doing this. A couple of bolts just to finish off with a Walking Ballista is probably okay. We're just looking to hit their big combo pieces and hopefully just finish them off. Opponent did see enough of our deck. They have an idea of what we're doing, but we just got to be faster. This is Vizier, but no payoff. I do get 2 redraws. That's probably okay. Pats can deal with Shalai, or Urza and Sai. And opponent is trying to figure out if they're mulling to 6 or not. The fact that Path actually answers Urza is like the primary reason I'm keeping this hand. We're going to stop at least 2 of their creatures and hopefully draw into something good. Second Vizier, not necessarily what you want to see. All right. Wow, already have Metalcraft. Color me impressed, opponent. Everflow's Chalice on 1. Well, that's fair. I guess we'll see if they brought in any interaction. Otherwise, I am fairly close to killing them. Still need a payoff, though. Need white with this hand, so Devoted Druid. Opponent can technically Urza next turn and hold up quite a bit of mana. Opponent looked at our next draw. Alright, you can officially cast Urza. And still be floating a blue from the Construct token. That's pretty good. Apparently not quite ready yet, though. I think this deck wants to cast Urza the turn they're going off, not Urza as a setup. Could be wrong about that, but alright, well, opponent had a pretty similar plan to us. They're going to drop a couple of 1-drops to get artifact count up. And some free spells. Opponent's really slow rolling some weird cards that are just easy casts. I am getting the read, though, that opponent doesn't have a Sai or a Saheeli with the fact that they're running that out. Look at that. Sometimes you're just good at this game. Is this a concession? You saw the walking ballista. Do I want the land? I can't really do anything to... get it back from my yard. I think I'd prefer the ramp. Yeah, that's fine. At this point, may as well get our missing color. We now have a nice vizier. May as well cantrip. Do I actually just want to cantrip? So I can hold up path for my opponent here. Or I could just run out another vizier. 3 cards in hand. Yeah, alright, let's just leave up the path. Targeting me again. Alright, opponent, show me the combo. Ready to get combo killed again. Apparently not. That is a Goblin Engineer. That's a card I'm happy to see. So, gonna go grab... Jesus, is just Damping Sphere? EE would be great. But Damping Sphere makes it so that they can't go off. Pithy Needle doesn't really do a whole lot. Yeah, we'll just do that. Still hold up path. Leaving up the forest just because it looks less conspicuous than leaving up the white source. If they do something to our Astrolabe, I'll be very surprised because they'll want to do it after the Damping Sphere. And even if they do try to wreck this in response to the trigger, we'll just cast another one and then flex it in. Alright, well that's a start. That is potentially a way that they can kill us. There's only 3 mana available though, it's going to be a little bit harder. Two cards in hand also means they're likely not that close to going off. It's definitely a possibility, but less likely. They need to have a piece of interaction for us and a Urza and a paradoxical outcome, and then draw into exactly another paradoxical outcome. Alright, well, nothing I actually want to path. That is a Kitchen Finks. So, I need to leave up path, I need to play an Astrolabe to hopefully hit a land drop, and then I need to leave up Weld. So, same logic, let's just run out this guy. Another Kitchen Finks. Well, if I would have gotten Damping Sphere with the Engineer, we could have won from this spot. But I'm still pretty confident just holding up the path to exile. So let's just go ahead and weld now while I think opponent doesn't have anything going on. Okay, we're going to weld you, pain this, and we're going to target this. All right. Currently on the table for 2, but we're fairly close to winning. Another Goblin Engineer can cheese into play something at instant speed as long as this guy doesn't get answered. Oh, that's just fantastic. Oh, I'm just gonna filter because if they're on nothing, they're on nothing, and path the Vizier, just because we have a duplicate in hand. Then that still puts me on top deck in a land for Vizier and Kitchen Finks, and then I am just 2 turns away from winning it. It looks like opponent's not on much. That EE was a really good top deck for them. Alright, well there's our land, so Kitchen Finks. Gain some life, Vizier, get an infinite Kitchen Finks. And we'll see what opponent's got. Walking Ballista currently goes for 2, which I think doesn't matter for anything unless we top deck our Bolt, but then we can't... Yeah, we can actually kill Saheeli from there. But they have a size, so it's not like that matters. I think we need to top deck a Grinding Station or Blasting Zone. Well, it's technically a thing. Opponent is pausing on this. I am expecting it to just be a regular pause, but I'm going to attack in with the Kitchen Finks because it's free. Although, let's hit Saheeli. It's not like they're not going to block, but if they don't, I'd rather chip this down to 2 so I can kill it with the Ballista. They do see the fact that that will come back. No, they have a removal spell? Alright, well, that's fine. That means they don't have anything, so let's just path Meow. They can technically filter and sack the last 2 servos, but that leaves them open. They'll have to draw into something for Saheeli to create a couple additional blockers, and having a live Walking Ballista makes that harder. Oh, that was smart. They sacked the other Astrolabe lab. I don't know what to call that. Someone feel free to correct me. So, they did see 2 fresh cards there. It's unlikely they're on nothing, because they also get their draw for turn. This looks like a Paradoxical, and they just floated this because they're about to... They shouldn't have tapped the snow-covered island. I'm not going to let opponent play this out. I am getting really sick of watching this deck because people are really slow figuring out the triggers, and we're likely dead there. It's not deterministic, but I can't watch another opponent fiddle through that combo and try to figure out how to get there. So Naya Persist combo, not off to a great start. Eldrazi Tron did Eldrazi Tron things. All Is Dust cleared our board. Urza EE'd and cleared our board. I'm probably keeping wrong half hands because that's a problem that we've been suffering from, is wrong half the deck. We're finding both the edge pieces for the current combo, so maybe that's just a mulligan decision that I could potentially be doing better, but when you're looking for raw cards, it's not great being in this position. The first thing immediately coming to mind is the Instant Speed Tormenting Voice is probably going to be replacing some number of the random draw cards. Like, this is fine. I have infinite mana, but I don't really have a payoff yet. But I do have a full combo, as well as part of the other combo. So any sack outlet or any Walking Ballista will get me there. And I wasn't supposed to crack that yet. In fact, I was supposed to Wooded Foothills for shock. Trying to talk through what I'm doing. Goblin Guide. Alright, well, would have liked the fetch up for that. Show me combo! Astrolab is fine. If I get them to burn cards on this, then that's less burn going at my face. So I think the plan right now is to removal spot check them. Then I get to Kitchen Finks and hopefully Vizier, hoping that they don't target it. Or I can just Vizier right now and Astrolabe. Blasting Station got revealed, so I do technically have a combo kill here. Oh, because of my okay, no, this is fine. I was gonna say my sequencing messed this up, but we get to Astrolabe, see a fresh card. So bolting a Goblin Guide now is going to save me a pretty significant chunk of life. Currently looking at 4 damage, potentially 10. If they have land and 3 bolts, I'm dead. But that would mean that they're not targeting the Vizier, and then I just untap and kill them and get infinite life. Alright, we're taking the risk. If they have a Syrian Blaze, then sad panda-ness, but I'm still alive for another turn, which means Finks lands. This actually might be mono-red prowess since they're not on fetch lands. Oh, it's 8 whack. Okay, so likely just dead. Loyalist is first strike, and then Bushwhacker kicks it, and I'm taking 9 multiple lethals. Alright. I was 1 point over dead there. EE's quick removal, Ensnaring Bridge needs to come down pretty fast. Knight of Autumn comes in just because it's awesome. This particular build's weak to Torpor Orb. Welding Jar could be a consideration, but I don't really have any creatures that are trying to survive. Spellskite's a really good blocker, so that's probably coming in. Any of the creature removal's great. Rhythm's going to be insanely slow and awkward, so that's pretty easy trim. The Walking Ballista is still fine because it blocks and also removes things like the Loyalist. Kitchen Finks is fantastic. Murderous Redcap's probably a little bit too slow. I think we're actually going to try to play the mid-range game, like mid-range Staxy. If I knew I was going to be saying mid-range Staxy at some point tonight, I probably would have known this deck wasn't going to work. But I do think that there's something here. Like, so much of this works in interlocking ways. If I could just find a way to make the Blasting Stations work with the Devoted Druid combo, we would be a real deck. But probably going to have to wait for another artifact block to have that happen. And that's likely not happening anytime soon. Kaladesh was quite a blunder. Removal for 8 whack cards and life gain and combo piece. Need a third land, but the fact that my opponent's not going to do anything until turn 3 is great. Show me Goblin Guide. Oh, that's not a Goblin Guide. Still has to die, though. I want a Goblin Guide to give me lands. Busted start from them here is multiple Burning Tree Emissaries or I think it's a Shaman that generates red when it enters into a Surge Bushwhacker, but I'm going to set up my Vizier and hopefully set them off tempo for a turn. If I get a land, I'm really happy with my Knight of Autumns. Alright. Land. That's a pain land. The way that this would work out is Knight of Autumn dies to Bolt, although if they're casting this, they likely have Bolt in hand. I'd likely Knight of Autumn and gain life, because Bolt still kills it, and that's 3 life versus 4 life. I'm not going to be destroying anything at the moment, and since I would be paying 2 life to gain 4 life, we're just going to slow roll this, hold up the Bolt in the path. And I suppose we'll see how busted opponent's start is. Okay, if that's it, they potentially have Core Firewalker since they saw... Nope, they're budget 8 whack. Never mind. It's not burn. They're not going to do burn things. Alright, well, we go to 23 and give ourselves a blocker versus any of their 2 hastes. Another Legion Loyalist is going to be annoying, but they probably would have ran both out. I mean, that technically kills my Knight of Autumn, but I'll pay 2 mana to gain 4 life in this matchup. This looks like Devastating Summons. Yep. Alright, so they're going to get 2 4/4s. So my turn. That actually hurts. Opponent is out of cards, though. I'm going to get a creature that can block an elemental and a path. And a lightning bolt. Okay, so I'm not going to path yet because if they draw any gas, they can't cast it. So white, green, 1. Make this a 4/3. Then we'll take 4, go down to 7. And hopefully draw into some action. Alright, they found a land, so Path is back on the table. Ooh, Helix is a good card. Gain back some of that life I lost. Not taking that damage, though. Alright, they found another land, so... Keeping this for creature removal. Arid Mesa is awful. In fact, cracking this is going to put us dead to double bolt. I understand I have a Helix in hand, but dead to double bolt's not where you want to be versus burn. And I do pretty firmly believe we have better top decks than the opponent, but we don't even have an artifact, so like a Welder's a bad top deck. That is a ruin, so I have to count myself as a theoretic 5, and stop giving me fetch lands! I guess I've only technically used 1, but that's still 8 lands of the top 15. Alright, Kitchen Finks is a good card. Deck, you have made up for your former mistakes in this life. And due to your recompense, we will actually crack and go get a dual land. Marginal thinning. Very, very marginal. Alright, well, we have 1 Vizier down of 4. So we can cast this Goblin Engineer. Likely going to be doing this to get a card out of our deck we don't want to top deck, but potentially are okay with. So, probably, no, EE I won't be able to cast. Spellskite. I don't want to top deck a Spellskite. But if I have to get one as a blocker, I can. Alright, well, Goblin Grenade is a real card. It's 5 damage to me, but I'll gain some life in response. There is also a consideration for Kitchen Finks to get hit, just so I gain 2 more life on top of that. I don't necessarily think that's correct, but it is a line I could have taken. Alright, that's a path. Goblin Engineer is going to be staying back on defense. The 1 point of damage likely doesn't mean a whole lot here. It's a 5-turn clock versus a 4-turn clock, but I can path if they have 2 attacking creatures. Alright, well, that's a sad defeat. We're going to go out on our own terms. How bad? Okay, we had another Finks on top into a Weld. That is crushing. Alright, well, let's play one more to see how this goes. I'm not overly excited with how that went down. We had so many good cards, but we just found so many fetch lands. The crack from the Arid Mesa did not end up mattering, but it is worth keeping track of those things so you can have an idea. One thing I'm realizing, and it's probably just because we played against Eldrazi with 6 basics in the deck, Field of Ruin could probably be a fair consideration over the Arid Mesas or some number of the Wooded Foothills. We did end up trimming all the Windswept Heaths, but being able to take out any of those utility lands like Randy Map Ruins would have actually been really helpful there. We had so many good cards there, but our deck just gave us so many crack lands off the top. Feels bad, man. Feels kind of bad. But we'll see how this goes. I'm kind of learning, though, that the more excited I am for a deck, the worse off it's going to be. Sad realization, but there was a lot of sweetness to be had in this. A lot of sweetness. Just couldn't quite get there. Alright, well, we found our opponent for match 4. I kind of want to do dragons again. That was a fun deck. Alright, well, this is a turn 3 combo into Bloodbraid with a Path to Exile. I might need to put some reps into a Devoted Druid deck. And that always feels amazing when that happens. Alright, well, lesson learned. We're going to start off with our actual fetch land and go get a dual land since we have a couple of snows. This is looking like a Stirrings to find piece 2/3, and then into turn 3 Tron. That's just how they do it. Ancient Stirrings does mean that this is traditional green Tron, not Eldrazi. Chromatic Sphere here means we might not be getting turn 3 Tron. Seems less likely that's not happening. The tapped Sacred Foundry is not something that happens a lot. In all honesty, Naya isn't something that happens a whole lot. Naya Zoo used to be more common, but... Alright, well, it wasn't just Slam turn 3 Tron, and apparently it wasn't a Stirring or a Sylvan Scrying on turn 2 Tron. This might be another... Sorry, not be a Sylvan Scrying. This might be another Stirrings, though. Or potentially just one more Chromatic X. No, it looks like it might be Sylvan still. No. Okay, so hard whiff from opponent. They also didn't show us a Dismember, so let's go ahead and set this up. And that is what holding W gets you. I've had to tell many opponents how to do that. Alright, well, there's a bolt to the face with a Bloodbraid. It's Astrolab. Wow, and no payoff. Alright. Well, opponent looks like they don't have Tron yet. But they do technically have 8 mana. Would not be surprised to see Oblivion Stone. Oh, okay. There is an Oblivion Stone. Find me a win condition. That is not a win condition. So 5 you get my board raft. Feels good assembling infinite mana. So I have a bolt for opponent, but that doesn't really do much. Wow, did they whiff a land? If they whiffed a land, I actually might be able to pull this off. Nope. Sadness ensues. Ooh, opponent, you really don't want to give me my draw step. For all you know, I'm a cord deck. Okay, was this expecting a surgical or something? So I want to leave the red up since I don't have a filter anymore, so that's just going to be another Devoted Druid, and then Altar of Dementia, and if they just hard cast a Worm Coil here, I still have a decent shot at this. I can just path it and then top deck Gas. Nope, Tron's coming, which means I'm probably getting Ulamogged. Walking Ballista for 5. Nope, Ulamog. Alright, what'd you hit? I'm kind of okay if you hit lands. And honestly, the altar's not doing a whole lot at the moment. Hitting these two. Okay. If I mill myself, that gives me more live draws for Goblin Engineer. If I hit opponent, I could potentially take away one of their pieces of action. If I get a Goblin Engineer, I don't have an artifact to sack versus them only running a couple of bombs in their deck, so let's just mill them. Oh, it's equal to their power anyway. Doesn't do anything. And most efficient use of mana, because who knows what I'm going to have to do next turn. Alright, Kitchen Finks is kind of a fine draw. If opponent is missing another piece of action, which isn't likely because they don't have tutor pieces, then might be okay for a turn. Alright, Ancient Stirrings. Come on, home team. If opponent minuses, then I can bolt it. If they plus, I can... Really? For realsies? Hit our 2 green lands, that's fine. Actually, that takes off Bloodbraid Elf. They go get a World Breaker, so they are planning land destruction. Hit you. Well, I don't want to show them 20 cards of our deck because our deck is sweet and unique. But, yeah, I can't actually win from here. So, if they attack, they see 20 cards of our deck, but then they also get to World Breaker or Karn away a land, and my only win condition left in the deck that can sack Kitchen Finks is Blast Zone, and that requires 3 mana. If we would have seen Blast Zone before, we would have been fine. But, alright, Damping Sphere comes in, Night of Autumn comes in, Wear Terror comes in. We can trim on the expensive things that require multiple payoffs. I don't think red cap is actually correct for this deck, although if we had more red caps and less of the artifacts, that means that we could optimize the Goblin Engineer package or just completely remove it. I don't know, like, how does this deck look without this? Because you have to have a rhythm, and we have not found a frickin' rhythm yet. We've cast it once, and we didn't get any triggers off of it. Without this package... Sorry, I should finish that thought. Rhythm of the Wild with Walking Ballista should work, because this enters with, not when it enters. So you can Walking Ballista in a 1-1, and it will automatically start off with a 1-1 counter, and then Devoted Druid can hit it. So you should be able to engineer in Walking Ballista and Infinite Mana sink into it for the kill. coming back full circle though, if we aren't running this package, we have 12 slots for tutor pieces, and then we just become a bad version of Devoted Druid combo. I don't know. I like the setup. We play fun decks. Back to this setup though, Torpor Orb doesn't stop cast triggers, so that's fine. Pithy Needle can name a Planeswalker, so that's probably alright. Opponent might be on Eldrazi, so if I'm actually going to trim anything from this package, it'd probably be the Altar of Dementia. I am feeling like we have just a couple of cards in the wrong places, though. Life gain won't matter, and Bolt's ineffective against anything but Karn minus. Alright. Wow. Okay, this is better. Devoted Druid is technically our third mana here. Opponent should have brought in some creature removal, though, so it's less likely that this survives. Opponent could technically be on... Like, this hitting an Expedition map on 2 is fine, although I think I'd rather Devoted Druid for myself. They shouldn't have Chalice. I really am afraid to try to top deck into a land, but if they have creature removal and I get stuck on 2, or... Okay, whatever. We're going to get a redraw here. So let's just tuck one of the dual lands. They both got green for Devoted Druid, so we should be fine. Then sequencing here is actually going to be slightly awkward since I have to snow on one. This is likely going to get our the red Sacred Foundry. So here I need to get a forest and put out my little toy. So part of this combo is assembled. Not an expedition map. So Sacred Foundry untapped. Devoted Druid. Now opponent's likely going to have to spend this turn killing my Devoted Druid. Alright, well, looks like they're going to pretty successfully assemble Tron again. Expecting Ancient Stirrings. Show me Ancient Stirrings! Oh, no, okay. Night of Autumn. Alright, so if opponent is on Oblivion Stone, I'm fine here. I want to do this so that Kitchen Finks can have haste. There could be a world where I was supposed to put a -1/-1 counter on that so I could leave up the snow-covered forest, but that would only be able to take the enchantment, not the artifact, so it's not likely that was correct. Okay, opponent only has 3 mana, and we have another Night of Autumn. So it's really, really rough having this awkward of mana. I think I'm just trying to put a fast clock up, so Kitchen Finks is going to get in. Go on, little buddy! And now, unfortunately, Goblin Engineer can only get us 1 combo piece. Opponent has 10 mana for realsies. I mean, that's actually kind of okay. So Walking Ballista is technically achievable. I don't think that's good enough. Alright, let's just run Kitchen Finks into Ulamog so that we can gain some life. That is so heartbreaking. So very heartbreaking. Are you going to show me another threat, opponent? because you are pretty far ahead on the board. I'm going to require a land and a vizier to win from this spot. I mean, you just get to blow my board. Yep, we're done. All right, well, I am so sad that this did not work out very well. So instead of actually going to the deck view, I kind of want to do a tuning section for this because this could potentially be a thing and I might possibly want to revisit in the future. So Bloodbraid is a decent draw and I do feel like in a mid-range setup this would probably be fine. The dream obviously being you Bloodbraid into Rhythm and then Rhythm enters the battlefield. The Bloodbraid enters the battlefield, you're attacking for 4. This is a world where that can happen and Bloodbraid costing 4 is not that big of a deal when you're running Devoted Druid and potentially any other mana dorks, which we're probably going to add a couple of mana dorks here. So Bloodbraid is, I'm going to set this off to the side as a consideration. Murderous Redcap, when it enters, it pings. So this is something that if we get a sack outlet, we can continuously ping something. If not, it's just value. If we would have been like infinitely blocking with Redcap, we could be shooting down other things. This would have been great versus 8 whack, but I think at 4 mana this costs too much, so I'm not a huge fan of it. If we're going to be cheesing Rhythm of the Wild here to give a 1/1 counter to Walking Ballista, we probably actually need to bump this up to a full 4 of. And I apparently don't know how to spell Rhythm. I've been struggling all day with this. So Rhythm being a 4 of is probably a core part of this deck if we're actually going to be shifting more towards a single mindset. I'm not a big fan of this package, so as I'm addressing cards, let's keep them separately. The Goblin Engineer being able to get our win condition for the Persist combo felt viable, but these guys right here were very slow and awkward. Walking Ballista being able to enter off the Goblin Engineer with Rhythm out is cute, but it's slow and it ends up using the graveyard as well as activated abilities from artifacts, which both get hated on really hard in Modern. So I'm okay with Walking Ballista being a win condition, especially because it's an infinite sized creature, but these 11 cards here ended up being too bad for me to want to run every day. So that's what we're looking at as far as this current package. Again, not 100% on Bloodbraid, but probably need 4 of both of these guys. Then we are technically a Devoted Druid Vizier combo. Vizier helping our Persist is also pretty good. Kitchen Finks is life gain, and it's great. It might be sideboard, though. So it's going to sit over here with Bloodbraid Elf. It's very 2014, 15-ish Jund to try to Bloodbraid into Kitchen Finks. No, Bloodbraid was banned then. I know that this was a thing somewhere. I'm blanking on where it is. Maybe it was Cube. Maybe it was Cube. But this is also a very cute package. It ends up putting 6 power on the table, and both of them are 2 for 1. So these are very powerful cards, and this is probably our only consideration to mid-range strategies. Our removal suite, there's a reason that Jund plays discard. We saw a lot of cards that are not answered by this suite, and one of the cards we were running was a Pithy Needle. But if that new Paradoxical deck isn't just me playing the same guy twice, that Paradoxical deck, Pithy Needle does nothing against it. We actually need Planeswalker removal. So something like Price of Betrayal, remove 5 counters from target Planeswalker, might actually become relevant. It does hit both Saheeli as well as... sorry, I'm blanking on the name. The other Planeswalker that they consider running. But I also expect that deck to be playing Mentor somewhere in their list, so we do need some amount of creature removal, and Path to Exiles are stronger than Lightning Bolt at the moment, just because there are a lot of X4s running over around the format, as well as Graveyard Recursive things. Dredge is still a deck, and it's doing fairly well. So I would probably at least go up to 4 paths and maybe cut on that. Lightning Helix wasn't here as a burn consideration, but we probably just want more Knight of Autumns on the side. If we are trying to run the Persist combo in here, we also want something that can blow up Rest in Peace as well as Leyline of the Void or Stony Silence. Like, we need a way to answer artifacts and enchantments. Wear Tear was cute, and it also got around Chalice, but Knight of Autumn is significantly harder to Chalice, and this is dual purpose. We should have beaten the 8 whack deck. We had a bad string of draws, but what can you do about it? As long as Soul Herder is a deck, Torpor Orb should be a consideration for all sideboards. I'm not a fan of having a lot of these. It does also work versus humans and spirits, but it's an effective card, and Hush... I'm gonna forget the name of this. The new card coming out in Throne of Eldraine, Hushbringer, is probably going to be the card that we go to for that, just because it is a 1/2 body and flying and lifelink, and just so many more reasons. A lot of our creatures are must answer, and when you have a lot of must answer questions, they get significantly better in high numbers. Uh, let's see, what else do we have to address here? So, the removal suite is probably going to depend on where our deck actually ends up with cards, but starting with these six is probably a fine consideration. If we are looking at other cards that work, the Green Finale is just a fantastic one, especially if we're trying to run multiple combos. Search your library for any creature. It doesn't even need to be green, so it is pretty much a strict upgrade over uh, Green Sun Zenith for this deck. So we are looking a lot like a Devoted Druid deck, but the Finale is great. If we get infinite mana, it's a win condition. If we don't, it can go tutor up whatever we need. If we do actually happen to have Rhythm of the Wild, we can just get some value creatures and actually just riot them out of the game. If we At that point, we could actually Finale for 2 and actually Rhythm, put a 1/1 counter on a Walking Ballista to tutor it for 2 mana. Likely not relevant in a lot of situations, but if we do have Infinite coming down at some point in time, we can. There's also a number of I'm blanking on what they're actually called. Safehold Elite, 2 mana Persist, potentially a good value creature. Lesser Manticore I almost put in as a fun of this deck. It did work pretty well with the Engineer, as well as the fact that we can just pitch bad cards that we don't care about, which means we can be a little bit more flexible with our sideboard pieces. But any of these 2 mana Persist creatures, I guess just these two would be potentially viable. Let's see. There were a couple of other things that I considered for this deck. Shalai was one of them, just that we'd have hexproof. That would have actually paid off fairly well in the Tron matchup, just because they ended up removing our combo piece both games. The board clears were the things that really hurt us, though. If we are trimming on our artifact package, we should have a collector oof somewhere in the side. Just because we don't need Walking Ballista to win, especially if we're adding cards like the Finale of Devastation, so this probably gets a consideration. I do actually really like Evolutionary Leap in this setup. I'd even consider mainboarding this. So Evolutionary Leap was a Dragons of Tarkir standard value engine. You can pay green and sack a creature, reveal cards off the top of your library until you reveal a creature card, and put that into your hand. So this works a lot like Duskwatch Recruiter, and if we're trying to work with persist creatures, something like Kitchen Finks can gain us life on demand as well as go tutor us 2 more cards, so it ends up being actual card advantage. This can also help fill pieces for missing combos, especially if we have a lot of one-ofs in the deck. If you do notice, though, we probably trimmed a lot of our one-ofs because they just weren't effective. And it was also part of the Goblin Engineer package. I do like Evolutionary Leap. Duskwatch Recruiter could also be a consideration just because it automatically wins without requiring an additional creature, but this gets around a lot of the artifact hate, which is what we were trying to pack before, which is why this made the sideboard. Ensnaring Bridge was one of those one of tutor targets. We are 3 colors, which means EE can be good for us, although you can tell if we actually sort by our converted mana costs that a lot of our deck is kind of in the 2 range and even the 3 range, so we're going to hit a lot of what we care about. Given our curve, a Birds of Paradise is a good consideration. Noble could also be a consideration, but the red mana is probably worth having the Birds of Paradise, because Rhythm on 2 would mean that we could end up getting something like a Bloodbraid on 3. I guess our mana could technically fix that. That only stops Bolt versus actually being able to attack with a single creature, so not being a budget consideration, Noble Hierarch actually probably takes this slot. And then we have a couple of flex pieces. This could just be more removal. This could be more specific targeted hate. I'm trying to remember what I'd want to use here. Oh yeah, we also wanted Field of Ruin. We had to patch up the mana base here. We did play Tron twice. Tron is a huge part of this format, so I could see putting in a couple of Field of Ruin since we have so many basics. Trimming on Windswept Heaths, and 20 lands is probably fine with 4 mana dorks. Like, our curve does go up to 4, but we also have 8 mana dorks that we get to run with, so that should cover a lot. That actually might even be one too many lands, but seeing as how I have a 2 mana dork, I probably want 20. Would have to go for what feels right there. Yeah, I could see potentially if we are running Finale just having a couple of tutor targets like Shalai or Linvala. Linvala would be quite nice just because you wouldn't be able to activate things from Urza. I'm trying to think if there's anything that actually particularly stands out, but I'd be a little interested to give this a run and see where we end up at. It looks more streamlined, and we also have a curve I'm quite happy with because this is likely going to come in here, which means we have the perfect curve of going up. And this is also X, although it's likely going to be a 4-drop. I could see this being kind of viable. I'd be willing to give this a shot in a future stream, but if we are trying to keep something a little bit more familiar with the starting build, having an artifact that combos with Devoted Druid coming from the yard or starting in the yard would be a really good spot. Having something like sort of the meat combo, and that could actually push a lot of those synergy pieces into working. Like here, we're gonna be a weird. I don't even think I can call this mid-range. If we have 7 threats that are kind of mid-rangey. Yeah, I don't think I can call this a mid-range deck. We're still just a combo deck, and we're a tweak on the standing Devoted Druid deck by adding red and Rhythm of the Wild for an interaction that we don't have a lot of anymore. The Kitchen Finks Rhythm combo is cute, though. I'll see if I can find a home for this in the future, but thanks for hanging around, guys. I'm sorry this one did not work very well. I was quite excited about this, but it just... Sad, sad, sad panda. Sadness all around. Oh well. I will be back next week with some fun stuff. I think Brad1 might not be streaming tomorrow night, so if you are looking forward to his content, we're probably going to miss one from him tomorrow, but I'll let him actually speak to that. Feel free to tune in and check it out. As always, you'll see if we're live streaming by checking out the Squirrel Dealer staff account. It hosts all of our content. And we do have a full... Excuse me. We have a full history of all of our decks up on YouTube. Some of them did do as poorly as this. I mean, just to be completely candid, that's kind of what my decks do a lot. But we still try to have fun while playing, and yeah, mid-range versus Tron was a little rough tonight, but we have some fun combos up there. Infinite Squirrels was a really good one. Tried a lot of different fringe decks, a lot of decks on the edge of the format, 8-rack, Martyr Proc, those are our go-to favorites. And then a couple of homebrews like this, Training Grounds, Collected Company with Infinite Manamorphose was also one of my favorites. It actually felt very similar to this, but that one actually performed well. Feel free to go check it out. We do a lot of stuff. We put out a lot of content every week. You can see my schedule over there on the left. Brad1 is Tuesday, Thursday. And thanks for hanging out. I will see you all next week.